All right, let's get back to our first guest tonight, Lasha. Again, thank you so much for giving us some time and talking about all these interesting things, to say the least.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Pat. I really enjoy it.
We were talking about right before the break, before we had to take a news break, about some of the evil things, I guess would be a good word, evil entities. You know, a lot of times I've been doing a little bit of research, and in the past I did a lot more, but people, for term of a better word, people that tend to go out there and sell their souls to the devil. And a lot of people feel that in the short term they see some miraculous advancements, whether it be in financial matters or in their love life. But once they've done this, once they've sold their soul to whoever it may be, eventually want out of it. Do you think when we hear that term, I sold my soul, or he sold his soul to the devil, it may not be the devil, but it may be something worse, something that, evil obviously can exist in all realms.
Oh, most definitely. And evil is just doing its job. Evil is actually something that's there to show us what we need to overcome, in a way. And you're right, there is evil, and there's terrible evil in all sorts of different dimensions. I mean, there's things in other dimensions that would freeze your soul. I mean, they're that frightening. You know, there's a lot of negativity that's out there. But, you know, it's not out there just existing for no particular reason. It's doing something for us. And when you start to get rid of the fear in yourself, you start to quell some of the negativity in the realm that's around you. You know, it's kind of like that. So, you know, things that are evil, you know, people selling their souls, yeah, that's very possible to do. When you start to become negative, you're selling your soul, your own soul, in a way, to the negative energies, and you spiral downward. It's very possible to fall downward into other lower dimensions, and people do it all the time. I mean, there's some rats on this earth that are better than some people. Right. You know, like it can be quite frightening. And there's also people that are very, very good at knowing how to pull power out of people, and a lot of them you see in the public. They're celebrities. This is part of what they're doing. Like, I know this is going to sound very controversial, but Michael Jackson, you know, I'm sorry, but he was gathering huge amounts of people around him that will work for him in other dimensions. That was part of what his spiritual focus was. I mean, you know, anybody that studied mysticism or studied how some of these ancient technologies work will see it right away. But there are people out there that do that in the public realm. So yes, you're right. There's evil everywhere, but it's not the focus of what life's about. It's a helper, and I know that sounds a bit strange, but we can't get to the light until we go through our dark side.
How many times, like with past lives, how many past lives do you feel that you've had? I've
actually been here since a very, very long time. And many, many past lives. There are some people that are very new to the planet and some people that are much older. And because you're new to the planet doesn't mean you're not spiritually evolved. You could have been spiritually evolved elsewhere and then come here for a physical experience. But I've had many, many past lives. I've existed in other cycles of time. We have cycles of time that work one after the other. And this is why our history is so disjointed. You know, you hear history about there being giants. Well, they weren't giants. They were us, just in another time cycle. You know, like it's a lot more magical than you think, than you've been led to believe in the sense of what you've read in history books and this kind of stuff. So yeah, I've had many, many past lifetimes.
Is it something that you chose to do? Is it something that you were? I guess it's just trying to wrap your mind around the whole thing is somewhat difficult. But is it something that you chose to do on your own? Is it something that let's just for the sake of the conversation, God told you to do or instructed you to do? How does that work?
Well, I don't know how it works.
Okay.
At that level. I mean, but all I know is that it does. And I'm a type of mystic known as a blue dragon.
Okay.
And what that means is that there's only 144 blue dragons on the face of the earth at any given time. And what blue dragons do through a series of mechanisms, spiritual mechanisms in other dimensions, is we channel and move the electromagnetic grid of the earth. And we're very much aware of that. And we are receiving instructions from Source, from the very center of the universe, that helps us when we're changing things, or tells us when to change things and how to do that. So, and I've been here for a very, very long time. I've done this in other cycles of time, and I'll do it in other future cycles of time. It's what I do. I remember very, very long spans of time ago of very involved celestial events and these kinds of things. So I've been here for a very long time.
Do you think a lot of us have been, but we just don't realize it?
Yes, I think we have been. I think there's certain levels of awareness that operates through us that people have been here for a very long time. There's some people that haven't. There's some people that have. And we all have jobs to do. We all have spiritual jobs to do. And we do them. I mean, you have to understand, too, is that the DNA that's in us is, science has got it wrong. In fact, science has most things wrong. DNA is a receiver of information. It's a sender and a receiver of information. And we receive information from the center of all that is, and we are an expression of it. So, yeah, I don't want to get too heavy with
Sure.
too much metaphysical stuff, but we have many, many lifetimes. We have jobs that we do in other dimensions. We have spiritual jobs that we do, that we perform, when you don't even know you're doing it. When you're asleep at night, when you're just walking through your day, you exist on all sorts of different levels. And these are things that are very, very important to the scheme of how reality works. I don't know how to explain it any better than that.
No. Well, there's a lot to it, without a doubt.
Yeah, there most definitely is. It's not simple. For instance, when I was a child, I saw a UFO. And when I saw this UFO, it was I was standing in front of a window when I was I think 5, and I was standing in front of a window and looking down the street because our front window looked out down the street, and I saw these lights going around, these red lights blinking and going around in a circle way at the end of the street, and they were coming slowly down the street towards our house. And as it did, I saw people coming out of their houses, kind of looking up, like, what's that kind of stuff. And just as it got right above our house, my father happened to walk past and see, and grab me away from the window and close the blind. That kind of, like, it was. Then he phoned the Air Force and all that kind of stuff, and it was a big sighting. But you know what? When I felt that sighting coming, there was such absolute silence. And it wasn't just, maybe, people are kind of quiet because they're looking at something. No. This was absolute silence. Absolute. Like it was another realm. And you know what? It was. It was another realm that was there. It wasn't a physical object, except we saw it that way because we're consciously participating in the event. So we consciously see it that way. But it was it's a conscious spiritual experience. This is what a lot of people are experiencing when they're experiencing UFO encounters. So yeah, it's complicated. It's very, very complicated. Have you ever seen this? They have a video of when NASA had this video, and they have these round discs that are up above the Earth, and they're going around, and they got a little black hole in the middle.
Yes.
And then they sink into the Earth, or
Yes.
they sink into they seem to disappear. I don't know if you've seen that on. They have it on UFO shows and stuff like that, and
Right.
and nobody seems to know what it is. Well, I can tell you what it is. These are other consciousnesses visiting the Earth. That's how they do it. You travel to other planets and other solar systems. You don't do it in a physical body. You do it with your consciousness. And when you come to a planet like Earth, if that's where you're going to go traveling to, it's possible to partially physically manifest. And the way you enter the planet is you have to go into it and into the center of the planet and then come back out. That's why you see a lot of UFOs coming out of the ocean and the water. That's why you see a lot of them coming out of mountains and out of the earth. It has a lot. It has a lot to do with how we travel from one place to another. UFOs are not physical events. They are dimensional events. They are spiritual events, and they're about talking to other people from other worlds.
Do you feel that, with going through your notes here, we'll talk a little bit about the UFO phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are seeing things. Of course, there's organizations like MUFON that are out there that are trying to, kind of pull that all together and build awareness and get people more aware of things. One thing, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on the program before, but if I could just digress and see if we're kind of talking along the same lines. I've had a couple of abductees that I've interviewed several abductees. I'll be honest with you. I think there's some that are very truthful. I think there's some that, well, I'm going to call it wishful thinking. But everybody has. Right. I respect everybody and their opinion. The ones that really have interest, the ones that have really raised my brow are the ones that can be out and about and see a craft and be with somebody, and that other person can't see the craft. They can't see nothing. And yet a big triangular craft, whatever, can be literally hundreds of feet off the road overhead, and they see it and the others don't.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I as I do I'm not a ufologist by any means, but as I do more research into ufology and experiences and stuff like that, that seems to be not becoming quite popular, but it's being noted a little bit more. This is something that's been going on for a long time. Some people are chosen to see things, some are not.
You know what? I wouldn't say chosen. It's not like God choosing you to see it.
Okay.
It's more of a karmic thing or a spiritual thing and an awakening thing. You're there, it's there for you to see because you have the ability to see it. And just a small note, too, is that anytime you see triangles, those are dimensional openings. Dimensional openings are often triangular. But your mind might see it as a craft because we're participating in it. Our brain and our mind and our view of reality is participating in the event. And so we see what we see. Like, for instance, back in the times when they say, a chariot in the sky, they probably saw a chariot in the sky.
Yeah.
You participate with it. So, but triangulars, it's always dimensional when it's a triangle, always.
Do you think so the triangular craft you feel is a dimensional craft?
It's a dimensional opening. There's various ways to come to this planet, none of which involve getting in a metal tin can and, chugging across vast amounts of space. It's mostly done through dimensional travel or spiritual travel. The ones that are done through spiritual travel, you're going to see as they can look very much like metal discs when they're partially physical. They're not. What you're looking at is a consciousness, looking around, moving around, in a way.
Right.
And I'm describing it at a very low level than it actually is, but that's what you're seeing. When you see the dimensional opening, you're seeing a triangle will open, and probably someone is looking through there, or an entity or a group of people are looking through there and just looking at what's around, or something is coming through it and coming to the earth through the earth.
Interesting.
I know I sound nuts. I know I do.
No, not at all. No, I don't think so at all. I I think it's just a different way to look at it. I mean, it's a different way of viewing it, and even like more and more people are starting to not necessarily report craft, but more and more are reporting orbs, intelligent orbs.
What those orbs are is generally someone's chakra. You know, when you see, you know, like I was telling about that picture of the sort of disc that has a hole in the middle, and it sort of has one notch cut out on one side that you've seen floating above Earth.
Right. That's
a chakra. And the thing in the middle, the hole in the middle, is where the Sushumna goes through. And also on the edge, where some of the nerve patterns attach. This is someone's consciousness coming here. You know, for instance, I can describe how I travel to other places.
Okay.
And you'll get the idea of what I mean is when you leave your body and you go to travel to other realms and other planets, let's put it that way, you leave your body and you rise up very, very slowly up to the top of the atmosphere. And for a minute, you kind of hang above there. You're sort of hanging, looking at the Earth. It's very, very beautiful. It's breathtaking. And then there's a moment where there's a decision. You have to choose between love and fear. And if you choose fear, which is a very valid choice, you'll go back down into your body, and it's a very strange feeling. It's almost like cotton gathering onto you as you're getting closer to the Earth. It's like physicality is gathering back onto you, and boom, you're back in your body. If you choose love, though, what happens if you're open enough to do it? You will immediately start going very quickly into the center of the Earth. You go through the atmosphere, you go through the dirt, you go through the rock, you go through the steel, and at the very center of the Earth is it's phenomenal. It's a kind of a glowing blue-white liquid crystal kind of thing at the very center of the Earth. You go through that. You have to go through there to leave the Earth. When you do that, immediately you travel and you go through the center of the sun. You go down through all the layers of the sun, right down. Mystics have done this for centuries upon centuries. You go right down, and at the center of the sun is a very ruby red, brilliant ruby red color. And when you go through that and you're shot out the other side, then you can travel to wherever your spiritual need takes you. That is how space travel is done. That is how space travel has always been done and will always be done. It's not done physically. We can't physically leave the planet. You can't leave your electromagnetic grid or you'll die. It's just the way it is. So when you see these things coming into our atmosphere, these are consciousnesses that are partially physically manifesting here because they're curious, they're looking, they're seeing what's going on, what's happening. You know, this is someone's mind. Or several minds at once coming to a place to see it, to understand it. It's not little green men. You know what I mean?
Right.
They can appear that way to you if you're very afraid.
Yeah. Well, why? Okay, so let's talk about people that claim to have been abducted. What do you think is going on there?
Well, if you remember before, I was saying that we all have teachers.
Right.
We all have spiritual people around us, spiritual beings that are helping us. There's a lot of psychic surgery that goes on every night when you're sleeping, when you're in altered states. This is what they're experiencing. You know, like for instance, there's precious few people on the face of the earth that will tell you this. But you know the thing about the anal probe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, people think that that's like some horrible medical experiment. It's not. It's how they have to access the Kundalini energy through the root chakra. That's what's going on there. But you're feeling it as some horrible experience because you're afraid.
So why do you think these beings? Why do you think that they do these experiments?
They're not experiments. They're helping us.
Okay.
We think of them as something frightening. These are our teachers. These are our people around us that are helping our bodies. They're moving our consciousness. They're trying to get us to awaken. They're teachers. They're teachers. They're, you know, and you know, it can feel like a terrible, terrible physical event has gone on because you're partially conscious and your mind makes it that way. You know, it's not something. You know, at night there's a lot of psychic surgery that will go on, and that means when one of your teachers or some spiritual entity will come to you and move energies through your body, move things around in your body so that they work better, or so that you can be more aware, and so that your chakras are better aligned, and so that your spiritual energy can travel through you in a much better way. You know, and if you're not prepared for it, it can feel really awful and physical. Or some part of you picks up that and feels it at a lower level, do you know? So what we're talking about is a very complicated experience of, you know, UFOs and spiritual entities. These are not simple things. These are not people coming to us from, you know, in little spaceships from other planets. This isn't what's going on. They'd love you to believe that at NASA, you know, or all these military people. They'd love you to believe that. That would work for them.
Right.
But that's not what it is. Never has been.
Very, very interesting. Well, you know, and again, I think, again, the abductions are, and maybe that too is kind of tied with what we talked about a little earlier with Hollywood, where people, again, they see different movies and what have you, and
yeah,
you know,
you know, everything's for sale on Earth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every experience is someone trying to make something out of it that it isn't, to try and, you know, partly it's to make a buck, you know, making a movie or whatever.
Sure.
But partly it's propaganda too. I really believe, in fact, I know that there is a series of entities that have been here from the beginning that are very much trying to stop the evolution of us, of anything, basically. And they really are in control of a lot of the people on this planet.
For the good or the bad, you think?
For the bad.
Really?
The mystics, the Gnostics called them the Archons. And they were here as our planet came into existence, as this solar system came into existence. There also came as the light came, there also came a shadow. And they were part of the shadow. And they are basically, they want this world because it's very easy on this electromagnetic grid to evolve spiritually. When you have the precious human birth, when you're born in the human body, it's because of the structure of the spine and the neural the neurons and stuff in the spine. It's very easy, or easier than on other places, other planets, to actually spiritually evolve. Other planets, you can't. There's no way to spiritually evolve on other planets. It's very rare that it's so easy on Earth. And they would be love to have control of it. It would be like a little, you know, they'd have the little corner of the market on, you know, we're in control of who can spiritually evolve. I mean, that puts them in charge of the whole universe.
Right.
In a way, or this part of it anyway.
What about space travel?
Right.
Now, you put that on your notes here. Again, we talked about dimensional travel, and again, when I guess travel, you have to define that a little bit because again, like what you're saying is, it's not about going from this place to this place. It's moving through different dimensions.
Yeah. You notice how we haven't gone back to the moon,
right?
The moon is the barrier on any planet where you can't go beyond. That's where the electromagnetic grid ends. If you go beyond that, your mind, your brain, and your body, your physical body, begins to break down very quickly. You'll go insane quite quickly, and your body will start to go through horrible things. It's that way on this planet. It's that way on every planet. You know, so, and you notice that we haven't gone back to the moon.
Right.
You also notice that the International Space Station stays very close to Earth. You know, I mean, like, it's because we can't.
What about?
And I think they know it.
What about a trip to Mars that everybody's talking about?
Well, I'm going to wait and see if they ever do it, and I'm not sure I would believe it even if they show it to me on TV. I know that it's not possible, not in a physical body.
Right.
It's not. This is the secrets that they've wanted to keep from you, from humanity, for hundreds of years, is that you can, each and every one of us can do this ourselves. Imagine the learning that could go on. Imagine how we could evolve, all of us, if we just learn and open and evolve a little bit. We can travel throughout the stars. We can learn tremendous things. Mystics call it learning from the light. When you get to a certain level, you actually absorb information from the light when you're out there. It's really quite something. Imagine that all of humanity could do that, or most people could. We wouldn't need countries. We wouldn't need governments. We wouldn't need anything. Would we?
No.
This is what they've kept from us. This is their game. This little game that they play. They want this to be a very physical reality, this world, because that benefits them. If they can keep us in fear, they can feed off of that. If they can get us off the planet, you see, they have a problem because, we keep coming back. When we die, we keep coming back and being reborn here. This annoys them to no end. Like they try to overtake humanity and oppress it and squelch it and get rid of them all. But you know what? We keep coming back. It can't be done. We can't be broken. We really are much more special than people know. We're much more aware and much more powerful than people know, than we are been led to believe. These beings are so jealous. They would love to have this planet. They would love to have this. And a planet is really just where time and space interject. They'd love to have this area of place so that they can ascend, or they can be in charge of who ascends. It's really just that. It's just jealousy. And as we awaken to it, they become less and less strong. They really do.
Do you think there's some, maybe we go a little different direction with this, but last week we had a guest on the show live in the studio talking about, he wrote a book about the Illuminati and the Illuminati signs and what have you. Do you think that there is some truth, Lasha, to obviously on this planet, humans, let's just be realistic. I mean, money is an important thing to us. I think that we're starting to turn the corner a little bit, but I think a lot of people, and it's just the truth, that material things mean a lot. Do you believe that there are forces out there that manipulate groups of people through greed, through money, through material things to get other things accomplished?
Oh, without question.
Okay.
What you have to realize is that money is not natural. Money, I often go back to the story that Jesus had. I mean, I'm sorry to sound religious or something, but there's a story in there where the guards are trying to trick him to get people for him to say something that would get him arrested, and he's saying you shouldn't pay your taxes, and he lifts up the coin, and the coin has a picture of Caesar on it, which is the first time it's ever been stamped into a coin at that point. And he says, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's." And I think this was a brilliant man. This was a brilliant man, because what he was saying there is that the face of Caesar may be on your money, but the face of God is on your soul. That's where the image of God is. Money is a distraction. It is not something that's real. And you have to realize, too, from an occult point of view, money, like a physical paper with writing on it and stuff, this is what's known as a sigil. It's a magic spell written down that the purpose of it is simply to transfer the power to the strongest wizard. That's what a sigil does. And that's what money is. It's about transferring power on a psychic level, on a spiritual level. So yeah, they use money to corrupt people, definitely. And they've done a good job of it, haven't they?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's, it is. It like they say, sometimes it can be the root of all evil. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fringe Radio Show. Lasha, we got a couple questions that came through Inception. Well, one of them for sure. We'll get on to that. But
Sure.
Carl from Salt Lake writes in, actually sent an email in. said, could you talk a little bit more in depth about these grid lines, because it seems like different events that happen, whether, now again, we're going to go a little bit beyond here, but whether it's, potentially UFO related things or like Roswell, some of these different things that have happened, they seem to intersect on some sort of a grid line. A lot of things seem to fall more than happenstance on a grid line, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Great question. And he's absolutely right. They do intersect on grid lines, and they're often places where you'll notice a lot of spiritual structures have been built, like churches and mosques and like Stonehenge and this kind of stuff. Grid lines are the places where energy changes in the earth. And you think of it as you think of it like a net kind of around the whole earth. That's kind of what it would look like. There's about 144 intersecting points that are the most powerful grid lines on the earth, and they're where the electromagnetic energy from the center of the earth comes through and channels through and basically helps to protect our planet and to create our reality. So where these grid lines intersect and where they're the strongest is often where consciousnesses can come through. Often that's where you're going to see them come through, and quite often you're going to see a lot of them come through mountains. There's mountain ranges that are very close to a lot of these places. It's very organized. Nature has a way of organizing these things in a very specific manner. The way the grid works is also very much affected by the position we are in space at the time. Like there's what astrologers call a great cycle. It's about a 30,000-year cycle where we're in different regions of the sky, and it's affected by what energies can come to us from the very center of the universe. These are all things that affect our electromagnetic grid. And you're absolutely right. The people that have known these things, who have studied mysticism and studied these earth energies for many, many centuries, way, way back, 50,000 years, 100,000 years, this isn't something new that I'm talking about. This is something very old that you're not allowed to know about, that we've been forced to forget about. The people that have studied these things knew where to build the right things so that the energy could be channeled upward into another realm. This is partly what a lot of these structures are about. So, yeah, he's absolutely right. Where these lines intersect is where you're going to see a lot of activity.
Well, it's like it's all pre-planned.
In a way, it's also, it's not like it's totally destined in the sense that you can't change anything, because everything changes at every moment. Like I'm not saying that it's something that some sort of prison we're in. That's not what I mean. But it's very complicated. It's very complicated, and how it works with the human body and the other bodies that are here, is another very complicated thing. And I'm sorry if I'm talking about things too deeply metaphysically. I mean, I feel like there's just so much, Pat. There's so much,
Oh no, I know. It's a deep subject. It is a deep subject. Carol writes in and says, how does Lasha explain who they are to people who have never been exposed to this type of concept?
You mean the negative entities?
I think maybe things in general, the things that we've talked a little bit about tonight. Yeah, entities. Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Well, there's all sorts of entities out there. When I'm talking about the negative entities, are what the Gnostics called the archons. When these planets in this solar system were created, and you have to realize that the solar system is like a nursery. It's where souls evolve out of. Any solar system is. It's like a little nursery. And when this universe was created, there was a great light that came. Actually, there was water first, but there was a great light that came. And as that was being created, it wasn't really realized, but there was also a great shadow. And these were where some of these entities came from, that are non-physical entities that are trying to influence our planet and are influencing our planet and influencing people on our planet. They're not, physical people wandering around. They're entities putting mind kind of parasites into people and influencing them and taking them over and causing them to do it. It's a corruption that's been gone on. It's very difficult to explain the history of it because it's big. It's really big where these entities come from. There's a lot of entities out there. There's celestial beings. The celestial beings are very, very, very large. And they have another iris around the, like you have your eye, and then then there's the white part.
Mm-hmm.
With the iris, they have another iris around the outside of the eyeball, and their eyes look very, very unusual. And they're very, very large, and they move with this great, huge swirling motion, and they tend to look very doll-like. These are very, very highly realized celestial beings. There's also negative ones that are out there as well, and there's carrier beings, which most people would call angels and devils. These are beings that are simply there to carry beings from one place to another. There's messenger beings. There's a lot of different entities out there. The negative ones that are really trying to focus on this planet and this reality are more what we would term the archons, though. They're more like very, very large spiritual energies. On one level, they also represent our own evolution. And I know that sounds funny, but things do happen on a multidimensional level. And the negative parts of them are amplified from negative parts of us. We're fighting our own unconscious in a way, on another level. So I hope that sort of explains it a little bit.
Well, there's just a lot to it.
Oh, you can see it. Physical reality is so small. It's so small. It's so limited. It's very hard to be physical when you've seen other places. Do you know? It's very physical reality. People thinking that, that life is just physical and life is about. There's more to life than just going faster. Do you know what I mean? If people think that life is about money and physicality and how old you are and how many wrinkles you have and what kind of house you own and this, oh my God. I mean,
right.
You stand and you look out at the great rift in the sky of the Milky Way, and you tell me that life is only physical? Give me a break. I mean, please.
Yeah.
And these are the things that people, I think, are starting to wake up to, is that there's so much more to them. And we've been tricked into not knowing it because that's the plan they have. If they can get rid of a huge part of the population and only have a certain population number on Earth, they're more easily controllable. And they can also control their minds if they can control their glandular systems and their spinal systems. And they basically become zombies, servants to these negative entities. That's what I think their plan is to do, is eventually to get rid of huge populations of humanity because they hate humanity, and basically take control of this area that will allow, they'll be in charge of the gate of who can ascend and who can't.
Obviously, this planet plays kind of an important part in the whole thing, but do you believe there are other planets like this spattered throughout the
hundreds
universe?
of thousands of them. They're everywhere. The universe is teeming with life, not only in this dimension but in others. Teeming with life.
Interesting. We've got just a couple minutes left, Lasha. Why don't we talk a little bit about your website? There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, and my website's mysticstars.net,
mm-hmm.
and I do astrology columns and stuff like that. I mean, I'm an astrologer. It was my first love. But I also do podcasts on there. I'm hoping to be able to start doing live ones, but I'm not a very technical person, and that's taking me a little while to figure that out.
A little bit of a curve.
Yeah, little learning curve.
Well, the podcasting world is it's kind of where it's all moving to. I mean, I feel blessed that we can have this conversation and do this interview on a I don't want to say a real, but it is on a terrestrial AM station here in Salt Lake City. But the thing that's nice about the podcast is people can go back and you can listen to it over and over and over. And with the miracle of the internet and all this, it's just huge. And groups like Inception Radio, we've been with them for, it's going to be 3 years, not that far down the road. We've been with them for a long time, and the
really?
great
Wow.
people we have met there, and the dedicated group that's there all the time, and so many great hosts that offer different things. It's a lot of fun. It's not only is it fun, it's learning and being open-minded.
Do you know, it strikes me as that it used to be what the campfire was back in ancient times, where you came and you shared stories, you talked about what you learned in life, and you shared your human experience. It's kind of like that now, the internet.
Right. Oh, it is.
And some of how we can share these stories, and I really think that it's changing things. If we could just talk to each other and understand what we are capable of learning and what we really are, not what they want us to think we are, but what we really are and what we're capable of. I mean, my gosh, we'll go back into the golden times, when things were a lot different.
Right. The Dark Ages.
Yeah, maybe even the Enlightened Ages.
Well, and again, it's just people are becoming more and more open-minded all the time, and that's what radio programs like this are about, are to bring different people on and hear different opinions and different stories. I don't mean stories as far as fictitious stories, but experiences that people experience and we all learn. I want to thank you again for being here. Why don't you give your website out one more time so our listeners can go out there and check it out?
Sure. You can find me at www.mysticstars.net, and there's a bunch of horoscopes on there and a bunch of free stuff for everybody to do. And if you have questions, just email me.
Sounds great. Love to have you back on again down the road a little bit, maybe in the fall.
Anytime, sure.
So much to cover. Lasha, thank you so much for being here tonight. It was an honor to have you, and I learned a lot. I think everybody else did, and it was a lot of fun, and let's definitely do it again.
Well, thanks, Pat. I'd love to.
Okay, take care. Have a good night and have a safe weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.